Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back with Gone Home developer commentary. Let us continue. So, last recording we had ambient music. I still have to admit I'm not hearing any of the ambient music. Part of that is probably because when I record videos, I have the audio very low for myself, and once I have better equipment where I could pipe the game audio to headphones and not have it get fed back into the microphone, I will be able to adjust that better and hear better. But often I just struggle to hear things that are subtle. I can hear people's voices and if they're talking, but more subtle things often go unheard completely. Here's the same sex ed class and how she did it, which I still like how Sam did it a lot better. No dialogue. Now they said if you found a crucifix in this area somewhere, it would do a jump scare. But I don't know where the crucifix is. I may have to ask people in the comments to mention where it
One
is.
of the larger assets that we needed for the basement to really give it character and personality was a furnace. And when we were initially thinking of the furnace, Steve had mentioned to me the furnace from Home Alone, which if you're if you grew up in the 90s like I did, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I did a lot of research and looked up stuff that could kind of evoke a similar feeling, and we finally settled upon octopus furnaces, which are like they're thematically and time-wise very appropriate. They're these giant hulking monstrosities with all these arms covered in asbestos. Really perfect, so we ended up modeling one of those and put it in the corner, and I think it turned out okay.
It's a little weird that the furnace just is cut into the air conditioner. Uh, I would buy it. I don't really understand why it's cut into the air conditioner at three different places unless there are some internal connections inside here that are blocking off different directions for the heat, which it doesn't seem like that would be the case. That would be something you can do these days. They even have a new system where you can put little balloons in air conditioners and run all the tubes to the air conditioner or furnace and inflate the balloons to close off that vent or deflate it to open the vent. So here is a common mistake. They have the hot water heater on a little bit of a lift, but this right here is kind of the emergency overflow valve, and it's supposed to be in a round basin or next to a drain. And personally, you can get for real cheap a water sensing alarm and put that right in that basin so you know when your water heater goes leaky, because they will go leaky. That's just how they work. Water heaters are designed to basically spring a leak and explode after a few years. Uh, most some of it's not just built-in self-destruct circuits, though. It is actually the fact that the inside of the water heater has a what's called a sacrificial rod, which is a metal rod. So the water comes in from the well or from your city water supply, and it interacts with the sacrificial rod and starts to rust that rod. And if that rod isn't there, or if it is completely rusted out and can't interact with it anymore, it will start rusting the inside of the tank to the point where you'll just eventually rust a hole right through it. There is a way to every few years replace a sacrificial rod, or you can just buy a new water heater unit, and it often is more efficient and cost effective to just buy a new water heater unit than to replace the rod. They've got some new water heaters uh, that have like Wi-Fi in them, so that you can, through an app on your phone, turn up and turn down the heating if you feel the water's too cold. And most people have the temperature set too high too. Uh, I set all my water heaters to well below what the Energy Star rating is, so that I have it so I could turn on full blast hot water and it will not burn or scald me in a shower. And that's the temperature I want it at. Now that will make things like a washing machine or a dishwasher work a little bit harder and pull a little bit more electricity if they feel and are designed to heat the water to a certain temperature. But for the whole house, you usually save by not using this. Often though, you have a gas water heater and gas is cheaper usually than electricity, but still it's better to not burn yourself and have it low. At least put it on the Energy Star setting. This is incredibly disappointing, this part. That there's no director's commentary here explaining this painting. I would like to know story-wise what the explanation is, and I probably know that they just didn't have time to animate his face. Oh, I didn't see this part either. Man, there was a lot of this game that I did not catch the first time. It's surprising. It's turning out to be quite beneficial to somebody told me that there actually is going to be a movie coming out pretty soon that is somewhat like the story of somebody coming back in time and saving JFK. So I don't know what to really say about that. It's like, I think that's a cool story idea, and maybe we'll be able to improve to see that story played out on the movie theaters. Mom's citizenship stuff? Oh, so the mother was an immigrant. That's interesting.
Oh man, this thing.
So two things. One, Mom's Canadian.
Yay!
Two, Mom didn't start out Canadian. The reason that Mom is Canadian is because Kate Craig and Emily Carroll are Canadian, and early on in the development of the game, Emily did Mom's handwriting.
This is before she did any of the UI text or anything.
Right, and it was before we decided that all the moms were going to actually be written by moms and all that kind of stuff.
Integrity in moms.
And so we had the answering machine note in the foyer, and the line. What's the actual line that's there? It's like
neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. So the line on the thing is like, Daniel from the old neighborhood call him back. And we gave the text to Emily, and she wrote it out longhand and gave it back to us. And then I looked at it, I realized that she had inserted a U into the word neighborhood.
Because it's what you do.
Because of being Canadian. And so, to fix that bug, instead of removing the U, I said, bug fixed, Mom is now Canadian.
Interesting. I didn't catch any of that. I'm looking for this crucifix, which I assume is here. Steve Katie intervention.
So there's this little scrap of paper that's hidden under this bedside table, and you start to read it, and then Katie makes you stop reading it. And it was this thing where it's an exception to the interactive expectations that you have. Like, it's one place, I guess the one place where we really impinge on your ability as a player to do what you want. And Katie intervenes, basically, and it was something that I thought was an interesting little one-off way of emphasizing the difference between the player and the character that they're playing as. And to you as a player, the note's just a note, but a reminder that, like, Sam is Katie's sister, and Katie wouldn't want to read this thing, and she's not going to keep doing it, even if you want her to.
Alright, so I'm going to look at that note. Be ready on the pause screen if you want to see it, because I can only bring it up, like they said, for a second, and it puts it down. It is sexually explicit, I assume. I only got through about the first paragraph. Pause now. Okay. So now if you click here, it's just... Nope, 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 not gonna read it. Stop. This room is weird, because it feels like a bathroom. It's got a sink. But there's no shower here. There's no bathtub. What was this? What kind of room was this?
You know, there was kind of this intellectual, cross-cultural, like pen pal thing that happened before the internet. You know, we used to write letters back and forth to each other about our ideas and about how we wanted to change things. And so a bunch of these women that I mentioned came up with this idea of Riot Girl, of being a punk rocker that was also in-your-face feminist.
Really? That was the entire conversation. This is the problem with doing director's commentary. This game certainly benefits from having a reason to play it a second time, but you've got to get people to talk and talk and talk and talk and just non-stop talk.
Todd's band lost their singer.
Sorry, I don't want to listen to
there
that.
was kind of this
But
intellectual.
You got to get them to go on for way longer than you think.
Before the internet, you know, we used to write letters back and forth to each other about our ideas and about how we wanted to change things. And so a bunch of these women that I mentioned came up
when
with
you
this
look
idea
at the
of
construction of this house,
being a punk rocker that was
it is just the
also
weirdest
in-your-face
thing
feminist.
ever. Okay. So you have this whole section that goes to a basement. The basement has to be under whatever the main house was. So the main house technically has to be over here somewhere. And then that really doesn't make any sense. You would assume this middle part was the main house because it's the second floor. The only way I could understand this is if the main house was this to begin with, and then they added on later the foyer, the porch, and the second floor, which seems to only be the same, cover the same area as the, well, actually, no. If you think about it, it seems to be floating in the air. Think about it for a second. When you go to the foyer, you are going up the stairs and to the north, where all the blackness is above the foyer. Every single bit of the second floor is either on stilts or just floating in air. There's no house under that section that we're seeing right now. It doesn't make any sense at all. This whole addition on the side doesn't make any sense. The garage kind of makes sense, but it's not even in this model. The garage has been added because it says it's only going to the kitchen and the pantry for this construction. So this house seems like it's just constantly getting added onto. So we need 1963 to open this. By the way, there is actually 2 places where that code is written. There's nothing in here, though, as far as a director's commentary or even anything of importance. And then you're in this wood closet, which let's do something really scary. That'd be terrifying if that turned off all the lights when you close that door. That would be really spooky. So I didn't find the crucifix. You have these bell systems, which I assume what happened on the bell system is this would have been in the foyer originally. They probably just took it out of the foyer when they disabled that bell system and stuck it in here as a antique. Or this is supposed to be like a slave's quarters, but then was the slave supposed to, well, why do I say slave's quarters? Let's be a little bit more generous. Let's call it a butler's quarters. What was the butler supposed to sleep here? And then what's with the sink and where would he bathe? Yeah, doesn't get fully explained, that room. And what does it say on the map? Storage is all it says. We're just in the storage and then servants' quarters. Alright, so it's called servants' quarters. And then all these newspapers. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's all the same newspaper, I'm pretty sure too. See, different thicknesses maybe? Maybe not. Maybe just they've rotated and oriented them enough so that you wouldn't realize it. But see, you can see right there it's the same newspaper, but very few people would bother to look at that.
There was a little bit of concern on my part before any of this got started that you never know how much liberty you're going to be given and how much over direction you're going to get, because somebody hears it like a specific way, and if you deviate from that at all, you're just going to keep doing the line over and over and over again, like 50 times until it's right. So I really wasn't sure what to expect, but even on the first day getting in there and being able to go through a few of the lines and just give them what came to mind, and seeing how closely I think everyone was on the page about it. So the direction was always really positive, and it was always kind of coming from either additional information that changed the context of what I was reading, or a certain change in the phrasing or the way something is being, a pause here, or maybe move it to here, or instead of emphasizing this word, try this one instead. So you end up with a lot of different takes that really give it a very different feeling, depending on which one you go for.
So that's just a voice actor talking about direction, which almost all voice actors talk about direction. It's pretty much expected of them. So here's the ledger for the pharmacy 1968. We still kind of wonder how the pharmacy was acquired by Oscar, or maybe it wasn't acquired by Oscar, maybe it was sold by Oscar. And I still can't find that crucifix. I'd really like to find that. I assume it's in the basement.
Putback is the feature that I'm happiest with in the game. And it actually came about as sort of a little bit of an accident. Playtesters had told us they didn't want to feel like some kind of horrible person rummaging around this house and tossing everything on the floor. There wasn't really any other option initially. That's all you could do was sort of try and lob things back into the place. So, I had done some code before for placing turrets and things in other games where it, will arbitrarily orient an object to be perpendicular to surface and all that sort of stuff. I told Steve that, we'd have a lot of edge cases with that and it would take some time to implement, and temporarily I would just give him the ability to put objects that these things would kind of stick to in the game, and we tried that and it worked so well that we decided to keep that, and that's where Putback came from.
Interesting. It is an interesting system because you have just throw, and then if you're looking with your reticle, which is hidden right now, on something, you can put it back. I think this is a hat box. Maybe it's some kind of like chemical pharmacy uh, delivery mechanism. It looks very much like it would be a hat box, and you would buy hats at pharmacies, like drugstores at least. Yeah. And still no crucifix. This is the spookiest part right here, is because you just can't have light in that area. Remember, the lights are on by default. There's just no light in that area. Let's see.
Fanzines. I mean, that's one of the things that we started doing right away, was doing these Riot Girl fanzines, and everyone would contribute and write, you know, an article for it, and then we'd compile it and make these Riot Girl fanzines, and we would mail them out to people. I mean, you know, all this is so funny to talk about it before the internet, but you know, we used the mail, and people would write. You know, we had a P.O. box, and we started getting letters because people would read in someone else's fanzine. There's this Riot Girl thing that started happening, right? And it just, I mean, it was the most incredible thing. It just snowballed. It just, people just, girls wanted to be a part of it immediately across the country, right? So for the time we started Heavens to Betsy in 1991, I think it was only a year later, right? So 1 year of Riot Girl meetings and these letters happening and these fanzines happening. Well, a year later, we left on the Riot Girl tour, the Heavens to Betsy Ratmobile Riot Girl tour, from Olympia to DC. Well, for some reason, it took us like almost 5 weeks to get there on this tour. And we ended up staying in DC another something like 5 weeks before the Riot Girl convention that happened. So that all of this, you know, all of these fanzines, all these girls across the country started getting interested in Riot Girl, and the press just went bananas. I mean, the press attention was off the hook. New York Times, USA Today, all these journalists wanted information and wanted to interview all of us. And it was crazy. So by the time we got to the Riot Girl convention, suddenly we were truly part of a movement.
So the real question I wish they had answered here. This is a real P.O. box, I think. P.O. Box 8771, whatever county, Down County, Oregon 07141. I wouldn't send anything to that, but that is strange they put a real P.O. box. Maybe there is no county called Down County. Maybe that's the joke of it. Almost certainly gonna get that returned by the postman and upset the postman for wasting his time.
The music for Gone Home was mainly composed over 2 separate periods, roughly a year apart. A version of Part 1 of the game had to be ready by October 2012 for submission to the 2013 Independent Games Festival, so I did all the Part 1 audio logs primarily that September. The following summer I did another round of logs for the second half of the game, as well as some Part 1 revisions in the ambient exploration tracks. One really nice side effect of the long gap between composition sessions, as well as the structure of writing music that is very literally accompanying a story, was that I ended up hitting on pretty different ideas and approaches over time as I got further along in Sam's story. The original sketches I did had mainly electric piano sounds, which are warmer and more naturalistic than synthesizers and other electronics instruments. As Sam and Lonnie's story developed more, though, I started to bring in acoustic guitar as well. It seemed like an appropriate way for the music to build up some more familiar, natural elements, somewhat echoing Sam coming into her own. Eventually, it became a really tonal element of the score. After that emerged, I started to more carefully control the instrumentation for the various main categories of log subject matter, including Sam's self-reflections, Sam and Lonnie, Sam and her parents, and even Sam and Daniel. Some of those have their own melodies and themes as well. That wasn't really a grand plan from the start, and I don't expect everyone to really notice it, but it became one of my favorite things about working on this score.
So here's the other way you could have opened the safe. So they really wanted to make sure you could open that safe. but you couldn't have seen it here. I'm gonna both show you how this door can get stuck and show you that you couldn't have seen this. Like if you run here and just get stuck and they're now floating, you can see that the bookcase here would have clearly covered up that point. And this gets stuck, so if you have to kind of cycle it through again to get it to work again. This is the one panel in the game that you can't unlock, and it's important that you can't just unlock this panel, because if you could unlock this panel at the beginning, you wouldn't have had to get the combination to Sam's locker to get the key to the basement. And so the whole way the game would work would be thrown out the window. But like this unlocks from the inside for no reason. We don't see like a knob or anything. This looks like it has a key lock on both sides. So without a key in it, that makes no sense. And you can still totally, at the beginning of the game, go here and beat the whole game if you just wanted to speed run the whole game. And you could speed run this whole game very fast. Still, not a single bit of commentary has been. Let's see, Jan Greenbrier. She got a shampoo set, color, perm, manicure, $120. They never really explained whether or not she was how far she was gonna go towards this. Here's one of the lights that blinks, and there's no wiring here. There's also no hinges here that explain how these walls swing out or anything. Let's see what this one says.
So earlier in an earlier version of the story in Gone Home, Sam and Lonnie got caught together, and Lonnie's dad was like an asshole about it and threatened to send Lonnie to live with her mom in Florida. And we cut that. It was too melodramatic and it wasn't really interesting. It was an external force that was acting on them, which I wasn't super excited about in practice and so on and so forth. But it caused there to be this concept of Lonnie's mom living in Florida, which
Florida is, of course, the worst place you can live.
well, let's not assume. But that said, it's like it's the other side of the country, and it's totally so foreign from Oregon and everything. Also, it's where I grew up.
Yeah, that was.
So so yes, the reason I think that Lonnie's mom lives in Florida is that I grew up in Florida, and I moved from Florida to Oregon when I was like 19, and I've been back to visit, but you know. If someone were to say to me, "Hey Steve, do you want to go back and live in Florida?" I would take a sheet of notebook paper and I would write "no" on it, as big as you can get, and
with
hand it back to
gravestones.
you. There would be knives, there would be gravestones, there would be
Dead
lightning,
face. Yeah.
big X's in the eyes, vampire teeth for some reason.
I was largely unfamiliar with Florida, and my family started going there every once in a while, or when I was like in high school for Christmas, because my mom hates being cold. And
pick the wrong goddamn place to live, Mrs. Zamanja.
Yeah, well, you know. But anyway, the only thing that I remember basically is that everybody had lawn flamingos, and we went around Christmas, so I remember hearing on the radio multiple times dogs barking Christmas carols. That's Florida.
Florida sounds cooler than I remember it being.
In my head, that's Florida, right there.
It's rather driving me crazy that these carpets are crooked. I hate a crooked carpet. I noticed something here. It's a shame for all the reading we can do. to pick up and look at a piece of paper and zoom in. It's a shame they didn't take that to these paintings too. I mean, if I want to look at these paintings in full screen, I have to zoom in and then walk backwards and then walk forwards and try to just physically maneuver myself to crop the image somewhat accurately. They could have done that. I'm sure somebody either bought these assets or painted them. And it would definitely have added more to this game if I walked around and looked at every painting. It would be another red herring. Is there some secret hidden in the paintings? There very well might be, since the paintings are at the very least being picked out by the mother, I believe. Ticket stub of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
All of the sliding doors that you see in the game are actually, from a code perspective, drawers. When I made a thing that could slide along a track like that for the purpose of making drawers, Steve took it and, as designers are wont to do, used it for his own purposes and came up with sliding doors in our game.
That's weird, but okay. So the sliding doors are just sideways drawers for the code. Well, when you listen to the audio, that does kind of sound like those, the folder drawers in the study, doesn't it? This is Mom's purse again. So we've seen 2 of Mom's purses. And some more coupons. See, there could have just been 1 coupon in 3 different places, but the book of coupons makes no sense. And I really do want to know what that crucifix is. Somebody's gonna have to tell me in the comments. I thought there might be a secret panel back here, but I never found it. It's a shame that you don't ever like turn a valve on a radiator and it opens the secret panel or anything like that. Let's see what this one is.
You know, it's really about the ideals that we were trying to get across in our music. You know, I think that the move to equality for women and for everyone in the U.S. is something that we all want to be a part of, right? And we used Riot Grrrl and we used music as the tool for that, you know. And that, but it's really, to me, it's about equality for everyone. That I think is the key, and that's why young people really feel passionate, and they listen to the music and they hear that passion, and that's what they connect with.
I'm trying to figure out what these are. So it seems like they chopped up the Riot Grrrl lady's conversation. What's her name? Corin Tucker's conversation way too much. Just getting little sound bites from it. I'm also a little upset that you can't break glass. I think that would be great if this was a bigger team. You would definitely be able to throw a glass, break it, and then walk over it and hear crunching sounds.
Writing Sam was a unique challenge, just in the sense of, on the one hand, it was very much from my personal experience because it's about being a teenager and my memories from that time, you know, as an individual, but also who Sam was and what her experience was came about as a result of kind of problem solving that we were doing, that Carla and I were doing, just figuring out what the story and what the conflict in the story was going to be. So, you know, by the time we figured out this was all going to take place in one house, and the conflict was going to be between the members of this family, and it had to be kind of irreconcilable differences that would cause serious drama between the members of this family. We started thinking, what form could that take? Could it be that the teenager of the family falls in love with somebody that they're not supposed to, and the parents don't agree? And what is the contemporary version of that? And so, we at some point decided that we were going to write Sam as a gay character who had fallen in love with another girl, and what conflict would that cause within the family, right?
And we were excited about that opportunity just because of the paucity of that kind of narrative in games. And I remember when we came up with that concept, just being like, oh man, this is gonna be good. We actually get to do this, which is really cool. But anyway, we actually we had to do a lot of work to make it plausible.
Right. Well, because the other side of it is that I'm the writer on the game, and on the one hand, a lot of teenage experience is universal, but I also at some point just had that very clear realization of, okay, I have just signed up for writing a gay teenage girl. Two out of the three aspects of that character are not something that I've actually lived through, and so it was impressed upon me, especially like when I was working at Irrational, how important research was to getting your fiction right, whether it's very practical terms like how something works mechanically, to what the characterization of the individuals in your story might be. And so my process was reading a lot of blogs about people's actual experiences growing up, being gay and being female, and reading fiction and nonfiction about people's experience, and doing original interviews with people that I knew in my life, and asking them about what they remember about growing up with these experiences, and being able to actually, ask follow-up questions. And I'm really grateful to all the people who have shared their experiences through writing, and who were willing to share their experiences with me, personally, talking to me into a microphone so that I could refer to it later, which is just a huge leap for someone to take, to talk about their own, coming of age and all of those very personal experiences. But, I couldn't have gone into writing this character with just saying, well, I'll just assume that I'll do an okay job and write it however it seems like I should, and instead saying, you have to take this seriously, and you have to actually reach out to people who have lived it, so that when you're writing this character, it represents the experience of people like her in a way that is plausible and respectful and
authentic.
Yeah, that represents them in a way that doesn't cheapen the experience that they've had by relying on cliches or just kind of your expectations as an outsider.
Okay, that was a long one. I'm noticing a lot of interaction here. I mean, just notice how this plate is sitting on top of an eraser. The eraser seems to bounce. I don't know if it's supposed to or if that's just a bug. Nah, see, it doesn't always bounce. Kind of sticks even. You'd think that would slide off. But particularly when you look at, like, I put this down on the floor, it started rolling, and it hit the carpet and stopped rolling. The only way it could be more accurate is if it actually spun and was lined right up with the carpet. Which, by the way, the carpet's not even lined right up with itself, because there's definitely some flaws. I saw some flaws in the plumbing, I saw some flaws in the in some other places, just splicing things together and stretching things out, but there's definitely some interactivity here that if these are Unity assets, then this is a Unity game, and that's the Unity engine for you. They didn't have to hand program the fact that plates would interact with each other and be pick-upable. So, pick-upable, like that's a real one. As much as they can go in and say certain things can't be picked up, because there's tons of pieces of paper in this game you can't pick up, tons of things you can't interact with. You can't pick up plants. A lot of what they did allow to be picked up is straight just, well, this is a Unity asset that is not just a stationary 3D model. It's a plate you can pick up. It's a plate you can rotate 90 degrees and put back down at a different angle if you want. And it will have gravity. It will interact with each other. It has actual geometry built into it. Even the carpet, which you would think for carpets and floors they wouldn't put any geometry because that can cause a lot of bugs of just going up a slight fraction of an inch even, but they figured out how to do it to allow the cup to interact with it while I don't feel like I'm actually going up an inch or any significant height when I stand on the carpet. So I hear wood when I walk on this. And then you get the wood steps go away as soon as you walk on the carpet. It is. Interesting. So they've even got like audio cues programmed into this. There's nothing in this hallway that I saw or found. And I really do want to find that crucifix. Let me know in the comments. Unfortunately, I still want some reveals of the story. I'm hoping that the very last director's commentary we find kind of just lays it all out. I wouldn't mind a round table of all the game creators just to sit down and talk about the whole story of the game and explain everything in their each individual creator's understanding, because I bet if you got all of the people around a table and started talking about it, even each individual creator would have a slightly different interpretation of some of the events. Anywho, we've gone far enough for today. That's it for today's recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps me out. If you want to support me, you can click on my name, Rydo. On the right will be a blue button that says support this channel. Click it and make a donation. And if you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media site, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.